Hi, my name is Em. I love colorful makeup and colorful language. I love Is It Cake so much. I have to talk about it with y'all.
Is it cake? Is it cake? Oh my god! This isn't cake!
There's a million things I could talk about in my first face to the camera chatty video that I've done in a very long time. There are so many things I could talk about. But this just feels like the thing that I want to talk about the most right now. If this happens to be the first video of mine that you found, welcome in. I love creative makeup. I also am kind of a former foodie. Yes, that phrase does make me cringe. Former food industry worker and very neurodivergent, very autistic. And in the recent past, I made a wonderful, really just a wonderful trip. And there's so much I could talk about. I think I've already said that. There's so much about that I could talk about. Would you like just like a chatty get ready with me, just like talking through the trip? Because I could definitely do that. But I saw Is It Cake? I watched it with my dear friend Audra. I stayed at Audra's place. And that show has left this like indelible mark on me. Also, speaking of Audra, they gave me aromatic pineapple from Dossier, which I believe they got in PR, but gave it to me. And it smells delicious, and I have not put on perfume today, so that's what we did. But that show, that all I can say is not true. I tried to kind of take notes. I don't think those notes are going to be used. I have a feeling this is going to be a very scattered and very neurodivergent kind of get ready with me. So buckle up. Let's see what happens. So I worked at a bakery for 7 years. I was not a baker, but I did operations. I did social media. I was a manager. I learned so much about the custom cake world during my time there. I left that job right around the time that I started this channel. I worked there for long enough that I learned a lot of information. And also like part of my work was kind of like researching trends and techniques and things. So Audra recommended this show. I don't have like I don't watch TV like on a TV. This is a Netflix show though. And anyway, there's something different about, to me, having a TV and watching like on the TV. There's just like a difference in like, I don't know. It's just different anyway. I say that to say, would I enjoy having a TV? Of course I would, but I don't, and that's okay. I think that's a good color match. That's a nice color match. No foundation. That's a nice match. This is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk 4. I have to look up the name. I got samples. I already had an interest in baking before I worked at the bakery, but I learned so much. And so anyway, Audra introduced this show to me, and like when we first turned it on, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a really nice, just like background noise kind of show, because we had been watching Forged in Fire, which is a very different kind of background noise kind of show, but also a very good background noise kind of show. But the thing with Is It Cake is that it was not background. Like I got into it. And so we started with season 2. I was instantly like, oh, this is more than just background noise for me. looks nice. I could use a little color correction, but I think I'm gonna probably do it as concealer rather than more foundation, because there's probably only another use of the foundation, and I kind of want to get another use out of it. Also, a lot of the makeup I'm going to be using is new to me, stuff that I was either given or bought or whatever while I was on my trip. I might have everything linked in the description box. I probably will, knowing me. But if you have any questions, just ask. Especially if you're a patron or a channel member and you see this early, because it'll be easier for me to answer. So anyway, that's a lot of concealer. I also haven't really put makeup on in like the last week and a half, so I feel a little bit out of sorts with even functioning with it. We started watching Is It Cake 2, and instantly I was like, this is not background noise. Instantly my brain went, what is this? Now, here is where I am going to put my first and probably biggest disclaimer. I fucking hate the host. I don't.
Guys, there is not many people I hate in this world, but the host of Is It Cake is literally number 1, 2, and 3. How does this man have a job? He is literally a menace to society. No questions asked.
I hate toast. I don't like Mikey Day. I don't know him outside of the show. I know he's been on SL, but I don't hate SNL anymore. I hate the host. I truly do. And I think that really affects a lot of people's impression of the show. I say a lot of people, I was like looking for recaps or something like that, like an easy reference today before filming. I saw a couple of like write-ups or reviews of it that like were really shitting on the show, and I think it's because of the host. But I implore y'all to like give it a chance beyond him, and that's why I want to talk about it. And also, I was T, Nabi had a Patreon movie night, and T brought up the show randomly, like at the end of the Zoom night, and I was like, oh my god, this show, and she was like, oh my god, this show, and so I was like, I think I should just do a video on it, because like I really enjoy it, and she was like, yes, do the video. The instant, like, okay, so there are a couple of reasons why I'm like, give it a chance beyond the host. So the reason why I feel like it's worth giving a chance beyond the host, it is, in my opinion, an actually kind competition or game show.
One of the other things, though, I love about this show is that the contestants are all just so freaking supportive of each other. Like, there are so many shows out there where people are cutthroat, reality shows, whether it's like a competition show or not. It's all love, it's all support.
I saw it categorized as a game show on one of the sites I was looking at, and I was like, oh, you know, somehow that actually makes more sense than just like a reality food competition, because I do think the host has like some of the qualities of obnoxious game show hosts, but maybe not in a good way, because I'm a game show enjoyer, lover, I don't know. So I think it's an incredibly kind show. I think that the actual people competing, they seem very, very kind. I think that there is a level of like kindness until that happens in shows where it's like competitors will be kind until a certain point where where it's not beneficial to them, or they're kind when they actually have time to spare, but when they don't, or when it's gotten further along in the competition, then they're like, fuck you, this is about me. And they might not say fuck you exactly, but you know. But I feel like this show was kind throughout both seasons, because I did end up watching season 1 after I watched season 2, and that's how I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about them in that order, because that's how I watched them. Also, I've only used the About Face matte eye paints like 3 times now, but a lot of my past feelings about matte eye paints and like liquid I might be eating crow a little bit. Using a flatter KJH Spectrum brush now. But there is just a kindness to the show that I really, really appreciated and enjoyed that, you know, I had not perhaps seen in other food competition shows in a while. I know that's something that like Great British Bake Off gets a lot of appreciation for, that, and for good reason, but like I just hadn't quite seen it in other ways on other shows. Like seeing Liz Merrick on season 2 and how much respect was shown to her, I was super impressed, because that is a big name in the cake world.
I can't win this. What am I even doing with my life, you know?
So I'm probably gonna be spoiling all of this, just letting you know. I think Spirit later in the season, when they was this the finale, when they were able to grab a former contestant as an assistant, as a teammate. Spirit, who was the first one up, picked Liz Merrick.
Who do you want as your assistant?
I'm going to take my mentor, Liz Merrick.
There is a level to that I find really just beautiful, and I don't know. I found it just really heartwarming. And because I was in the cake world, there is a level of yeah, no, that's not just blowing smoke up this person's ass. That is legit an icon in the space. And I mean, you can see from the fucking crab cake that she made.
It's still alive!
She's incredibly talented. So the kindness, and there was multiple times in multiple episodes where people were helping each other, they were assisting and cheering people on. The format of the show and the fact that the people that weren't competing in whatever challenge were sitting there and cheering on and talking to them, and oh my god, I thought that was cool. I'm sure there are people that maybe felt distracted by that, or it kind of made me wonder how they made sure there was some balance to it. Another reason why I'm I think it's worth giving a try, even though I know the host is not maybe our favorite. How do I say this? I felt like there was actually realism to the work that they were doing. I have watched so many different kind of challenge or competition related shows, especially related to cake, where I was yeah, that was not how long that took, or yeah, you definitely had time to prepare beforehand. And I'm not saying that they didn't have things that they prepared beforehand, because there's no way in some levels that they would be able to do what they did. And there's no way that they wouldn't have decoys ready. But I still felt like there was a level of realism of at least you saw them baking cakes. Whether I fully believe that they used those cakes when they were constructing, probably not. Cakes need to cool. You can't work on them when they're hot like that. But I still weirdly felt I was convinced in some ways about the realism of it all, which I'm sure some people are going to be like, you are just being sucked in by it all and all of that. Sure. Yeah. But I still believed it in its own way. I still believed it. And I really appreciated that whether or not it was real, it was convincing enough that I was able to suspend disbelief, because I am not somebody that is always capable of suspending disbelief in those kinds of like reality show or just generally. It's not necessarily that I was like, oh, all of this is real. It was more just like, I believe it in some capacity. And again, that can make me a sucker. And I'm okay with that because I am a baking and a cake lover. Okay, I'm gonna start the fight. I am also team cake over team pie. But like what you like. All desserts are... I got my hair, y'all. Sorry. When all else fails, grab the iridescent cat ears. So not only did I believe it as a show, which feels kind of rare for me, I also felt like the contestant, well, okay. Season 2, there was definitely a contestant that I did not like.
Tell me if this doesn't feel a little bit like instant karma.
And I thought she was annoying, and me and Audra were in agreement on that.
That's why I'm really praying for the three of us, you know? That hopefully we get to fool the judges.
I know, but like somebody has to go home though because somebody has to win the money. So let's be real. You know?
And that was Kayla. Kayla, blonde girl. Yeah, I was not a fan.
Kayla, since you were the only baker to not fool the judges, I'm sorry. You are eliminated from the competition.
This is what happens when you're not humble.
Amazing. You are obviously...
I felt like the variety of contestants was actually like, it was, I appreciated it. I love seeing fat people, black people, brown people, queer people, like women. I think there was a mixture of genders besides women and men, but actually I don't know that for sure. There was also like a mixture of experience level, like Cortarius. I fucking love Cortarius.
I gotta put my all into this. I want that money.
I felt like he was cheered on as a contestant and they were really rooting for him. And it was just so enjoyable. I also have to say, somebody that I could have been annoyed by in theory that I really ended up enjoying was Pete. I think Pete is incredibly talented. I will say, for season 2, big spoiler alert, the winner, I'm not denying her skills.
Is that a real pencil?
But there was something about her that I just didn't quite connect with. I didn't quite connect with her story in the way that like I think the show wanted us to. And I could kind of tell that's where we were going, but I couldn't quite, she wasn't my top pick in personality, but she was definitely skilled. Even if it wasn't like my win, or like, it wasn't even the finale that I was like, oh, I don't see why she would win, because I did understand it. But it was some of the earlier episodes, I was like, yeah, it's cute, but like sometimes her stuff just didn't really do anything for me emotionally, which I know is silly. But personality-wise, I was rooting more for Spirit and also Miko.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Early in season 2, I was like, oh, I'm a little worried about Miko. I don't know how it's gonna go. Like, I could see the stories they were telling, I could see it, but like, there was just things. And then like, later on in the season,
Miko freaking recreated the Mona Lisa, sat there and painted the whole thing.
I was cheering so hard for him. Oh Oh my fucking god. I loved that. I loved that so much. I just felt like, I was like, he's my little, he's, oh god, I don't know. I felt like he's my little baby boy. I have to protect him. I'm not a mom. I don't ever want to be a mom. So I was definitely cheering more for Miko, for Spirit, Danya.
Cut it up, daddy.
I thought it was just really, like, I just had a lot of fun watching it. I also felt like, again, this might be me believing it in a way that other people maybe don't. I believed that the cakes actually tasted good, or that the flavor was actually like an important part of it. Because here's the thing that I felt was oftentimes not compelling about like challengey kind of cake shows. It was never really about the inside. It was never really about like what you could eat from it. And I understand that. I understand that for some people that's not the focus. But I the fact that like they cut into them, and I don't know, I just fucking believed it. I believed that the flavor mattered. I believed that they were actually tasting the cake that was built. And I really like seeing that. I like that it wasn't simply about like just the construction, just the fondant or the modeling chocolate or whatever. And I love to see, okay, so I loved seeing the construction. Oh, I love the setup of each episode. Like, especially, I guess, season 2. I can't remember if season 1 was as much like this. But the fact that, like, there were these stages of things, and you had to guess which one was actually cake and which ones were not. And I think my favorite thing, because I will say I finished season 2 without you, Audra. But I watched most of season 2 with Audra. And Audra would just be like scrolling on her phone, doing whatever. And like they could look up, glance at the TV for just like literally split second and be like, it's this, it's that, it's that. And here's the thing is that like I felt pretty good at times at spotting what was cake. But I think for me, it's vision and it's also processing time. Where like I couldn't always spot it, like I was not spotting it anywhere near as quickly as Audra. That always cracked me up because I was like, man, fuck you. I'm over here with all my bakery experience and I'm still like, fuck you in love. Just to make that very clear. But that was probably one of my favorite parts. Like, I don't know. Well, there are certain things. So black fondant seems to get shiny. It can get a lot shiny. So here's the thing with black in food, it takes a lot of food coloring to get something black. And so black fondant behaves differently than other colors. So there is like actual proof there of like why a lot of things that when they had black fondant, and this was something that Audra caught, the black fondant was a dead giveaway. It was often shinier, and the shininess meant that you could see lumps. And lumps don't mean that it's a structurally bad cake. It literally just means that like as you're applying it, as you're smoothing it, it might get lumps. Air pockets happen, and that's oftentimes what lumps are, especially as a cake sits, and like air pockets can develop. So you might think your cake is all beautiful and all of that, and then like you come back the next day and there's an air pocket. And I've seen it happen millions of times. And it's not like a sign of a bad or unpracticed cake, person. It's just shit that happens. So the lumpiness, if anybody did not notice, like black fondant really shows it more. And I do think a big part of it is the amount of color it takes to get to that black. And even for the pre-made, like the stuff you buy from Wilton or whoever you're buying from, like it's just the reality of black food coloring. Most foods are really not meant to be black. Not that eating black is like a bad thing, because I think in the scheme of the amount of food coloring you're consuming, it's really all fine, but I'm just saying. Would I have loved Is It Cake as much as I did without watching it with Audra? Yeah, I would have. Because I loved seeing the combination of skills, talent, a variety of contestants. And I really thought, like, I'm sure I'm like thinking too deep about everything, but I feel like that variety is very like reminiscent of the food industry, including the cake world. You have artists, you have sculptors, you have bakers, you have all kinds of people that end up in the industry, in the community, I will even say. Let's say they're not all making money doing this, they're just hobbyists. You have all kinds of people. And I just really loved seeing that. I felt like there was actually a variety of contestants that I wanted to root for. And that's one of those things with a lot of competition shows, even in the food world, that I can't always say is true, because a lot of times, a lot of the contestants are not, like, they are hateable. And I am not a hate watch person. Why did I say hate fuck? I'm not fucking any of these people. I'm not a I'm not typically, I don't tend to enjoy hate watching shows or things. So for me, when a show has one or two contestants that I'm excited about and the rest I'm either whatever or I actively hate, I'm not going to keep watching it. Especially when people that I like get sent home. And I felt like this show has a better balance of like people I wanted to root for. Because even when the likes like Kayla kept sticking around, I was like, okay, but there's all these other people that I am enjoying, and then I can hate watch just her, but I'm still enjoying most of the show. I also love seeing just sincerely weird people on the show. The winner of season 1, the moment...
You gotta be a little weird to do this kind of thing.
The moment... I love it. The moment I saw them on screen, I was like, I want to be their friend. I want to know them. I want them to win.
Everything you've worked for throughout this competition comes down to this case.
And they did.
It's not a cake! Not cake!
And that was also very enjoyable to watch.
Wow. Wow.
I felt like season 1 kind of blurred by a little for me more than season 2, but it was funny because I know of one of the contestants, Johnny, that was on season 1 from other, like, I know his cake stuff, but I didn't connect the dots that he was on Is It Cake?
Oh my God.
And I also love that he was picked as the assistant Andrew, or Sugar Freak Show on Instagram, which is a delightful follow. As soon as I saw Andrew in season 1, I was like, I need him to win. I want him to win. Please win. I hope you win. And Andrew won. And that made me so fucking happy because I was like, oh my God, my weirdos won. And like, when Johnny, so I was watching a little bit of season 1 with Audra. And when Johnny, like, I was telling them about how like I had known them. I think I found Johnny through the Try Guys. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, he's just like a cute, weird, queer dude, like a little gay guy. And like, I don't know, I say that with love and appreciation. And then like, as we were watching, I think it was just that first episode of season 1 that I watched with Audra, or maybe it was more. But anyway, they were like, oh yeah, he is. There's a little weird gay guy. I say that with love. But I just thought that was really funny because I was like, see, my perception is accurate. My way with words is questionable, but my perception is accurate. Oh, okay. So the other thing that I felt like kept me so hooked in to the show was the fact that they could alter the decoys. So I didn't even explain the setup of the show. And I'm describing season 2 because season 1, I watched it after and I felt like it was more of a blur. It was a little bit less standout for me. That could just be a me thing because it was mostly like Andrew and Johnny were the 2 contestants that I was the most kind of like hooked in with. The way the show works is that the beginning of each episode, first of all, there's a spinning cake wall that's like the big to-do. Again, Maggie Day is very obnoxious about it, but that's okay. It's a bit. So this wall spins around and there's a themed setup, a room, a display, whatever you want to call it. And so one episode, it was like a college dorm room. One episode, it was a camping site. Then the question becomes, what up here is cake? And everybody has like a tablet and they log in their answers. And then Mikey Day goes around and obnoxiously tries to cut into everything that people guessed. He's really bad at cutting cakes. He's really bad. That part fucking pisses me off too. And I know that the technique that most of those cakes are made with, which is a ganache crumb coat, I know that that makes slicing into those cakes harder. Like actually just like harder. But dude, 2 seasons and you can't fucking cut a cake. Again, I fucking hate him. So then typically it's like whoever gets the answer right gets to compete. So sometimes it's like 3 people, sometimes it's 4 people. That's the part where I'm like, how did they make sure some of this is a little produced? It's a little produced. So once the winners are picked out, that display is also the theme for that day or for that show. So again, camping, whatever. So then they get to pick an item from the cake wall that they want to reproduce. So if you're the first winner, you get your first pick, etc., etc. So that's your decoy. So let's say there's a wall that has makeup and I decide that this open palette is my decoy. Is my thing. That's what I'm gonna make cake out of. So that's my decoy. Early on in season 2 when I was watching, I wasn't directly noticing as many contestants editing or changing their decoys. But there was a point in the season where Spirit did that. And I think Danya did it in the camping episode. I remember Danya had the flashlight and her isomalt was supposed to be clear glass cover for the flashlight, you know, where the light shines out of. The isomalt didn't turn out perfect, so it was cloudy. So she then altered her decoys so that they all had a cloudy glass, which I was like, oh, chef's kiss, perfect. Some people change the paint colors on things or all of these things. So depending on the challenge, you might only have 1 decoy. You might have 2, 3, 4. It kind of varied, and I can't remember if it was like it just naturally increased as the shows went on or what exactly. So you have your decoys, maybe you just have 1, and then people would make their cakes. They would have different flavors. A lot of times the flavors were kind of themed. Like there was a s'mores cake in the camping episode. There was like a PB&J cake in the college dorm room episode. So that's where I'm like, I do think that the cakes, I think the flavor actually mattered. The amount of cake you got, the balance of fillings, all of that did come into play with judging. Okay, so they make the cakes. Let's say it's a round where there's only 1 decoy. Then that same cake wall would spin around and there might be 6 pedestals up there for 3 contestants. And so it's like, you know, there's 2 products next to each other and one is cake and one is the decoy, and then there's a second and there's a third. Or if it's a round where everybody has a lot of decoys, then it's kind of like 1 at a time. 5 pedestals might turn around and 1 of them is cake. And so you have 3 judges and they're trying to guess which one is cake, and they have like 30, like it's basically 10 seconds per guess. The thing that gets me in this show that I think is so brilliant, and I know some people might hate it, the cake wall is far away from the judges' stand. You don't get to go up and look at the cake when you're trying to guess. People will see cakes online, they will see photos and videos, and they'll be like, oh my God, like, yeah, that looks cool, but like, obviously that's cake. But when you're far away, it becomes harder to tell. And I also think like the timing is obviously a huge part of it. But even if they had more time, there's just, I found it very smart the way they have it set up. And like I said, some people might hate it. They might be like, why would they be so far away and only have, 10 seconds to pick? But there's a part of that I really enjoy, because I also think it neutralizes the playing field. Because it's the same for the rooms when the contestants, the cake experts, are guessing, what is cake in the campsite, they're also that far away. They might have a little bit more time, but they're also far away. Then the judges are like, there might have been some people that knew something about food, but they're not food experts. They're funny. And that's, I think, the part that like also feels like, I guess, a game show in some way, where it's just like them picking who is and isn't cake is like a very weird / entertaining to me way to do it. I enjoyed watching it. At least it makes it a little spicy. I love Nailed It. I love Nicole Byers, but also Jacques Torres knows what the fuck he's doing. But like, that's another example of like a judging panel that also keeps it fun. So the judges have a very short amount of time. They have to lock in their answers. And I thought it was really funny because there were times when they would not be able to decide quick enough, and so they would never lock in an answer, which basically automatically means that whoever's cake that they were not able to lock in an answer for gets a pass. So I found that entertaining. And then after they do that, let's say it's like 2 people got detected. So then the tasting happens. The tasting happens for both like the winners and the losers. So if there are multiple people that are in the winners round, then those cakes get tasted. And then the final winner of that episode gets picked based on flavor and the cake. I think that also when they're looking at the winners and trying to pick the winner of like each episode, they do get to go up close to the cakes. I remember they did that in the finale. I'm saying I think because I can't remember if they did that with all of the other episodes. So I felt like the flavor is actually important in the show in some capacity, which I really enjoyed. And then the thing that is after they announce a winner and a loser, or multiple losers, because there were some shows where more than one person went home, then there was a cake or cash round that's like another bonus round for the winner of that episode to take home more cash. And so that's the other, they're again a distance away from the cake wall, and it spins around, and there are 2 things. And it's like, there's a suitcase with money spilling out. There is a giant Gatorade water jug with money in it. Again, these are cake makers and cake experts, and they're trying to judge the difference between the cake and the decoy, and they aren't all successful. So there is something about the distance and obviously the time. It messes with your brain and your perception. And so like that's kind of how each episode goes, and it also kind of makes sense how they're able to like distribute the contestants, because let's say in an episode 3 people competed because they're the 3 people that guessed the cake in the the campsite. Then the next episode the remaining 4 people or whatever will compete. I don't know why I felt like I needed to actually explain the show to you, but I did. I've been talking for a long time, doing makeup for a long time, and I think my look is finished, and I feel like I covered most of my points. Oh, I mean, I wanted to say that, like, okay, so one of the biggest points is that I worked in a bakery. So I understand, even though I might not be able to I understand a lot of the techniques, and I was actually seeing technique happen. Everybody's gonna cut corners, everybody's gonna make do shortcuts as they need to, but it felt like people were actually knew what the fuck that they were doing. And there was obviously different levels of skill or technique or whatever, depending on how long you've been doing it, but I felt like you were actually seeing techniques in action. So like I worked at the bakery from 2012 to 2019, and I felt like during that time we were doing a technique that not a lot of bakeries were using, or maybe it wasn't that not a lot of bakeries were using, but it wasn't as used. It was a technique that takes more time, but the cakes look nicer in the end. They're also way more stable. I just remember not everybody being comfortable or liking doing that technique, like people that worked in the bakery. The cakes just look so much cleaner, sharper, nicer. But again, I felt like at that time, during the time I was there, that technique was not, I feel like, well embraced. And that technique is that ganache crumb coat. And to see it in this show, to see basically every contestant do that, like 10 years later, however long it's been since, you know, whatever, I was like, see, like I had my shit with that place. I had my shit, but also we were doing some of the shit right. We were doing some cool ass shit. And we were like not a super popular bakery in the Brooklyn or New York area, blah, blah, blah. So to see it, that crumb coating, the thing that made actually cutting the cakes hard, because the ganache sets up, it's not necessarily like candy shell where it like cracks, but it's firm chocolate. But to see that, because that's a really, really, really good way to actually get crisp shapes, whether it's just a regular tiered cake, or if you're sculpting, doing something 3D, doing, you know, out of cake, not like a smaller 3D thing, but like 3D cakes. It's a really, really, really good way, because you basically just make a base shape out of the cake, and a lot of times you're using the chocolate to do a lot of the sculpting work. And so you're not worried about cake necessarily buckling underneath or smushing in. So to see it in the show, I was like, okay, this is really fucking cool. To me, this was really fucking cool. I really enjoyed seeing that. Like seeing people struggle to mix colors, mixing certain fondant colors, getting certain colors, just like I was talking about with black. Getting certain colors is challenging. Getting certain textures is challenging. Fondant wants to be sweaty, especially if temperature fluctuates. And they were filming in a studio, and I don't fucking know what temperature it was in there, but the fondant was definitely like, you know, I am so curious. I'm sure I could find it out. I'm so curious to know who the fuck they have on staff, or what bakery they're working with to do all of their on-camera cakes that the competition is not making. Because they have a lot of cakes. Even if you're just thinking about 2 cakes every episode, because they have the introduction of the challenge, so that vignette with the cake kind of like hidden in there, they have that cake, and then they always do their cake or cash competition at the end of the episode. Cakes like that are not cheap to make. Not a lot of bakeries are gonna do deals or whatever to do that, because it's still a shit ton of work, and because they're not like advertising the bakery on the TV show, there's not really a reason to like cut them a deal. So I'm like, do they have somebody on staff that's doing that? I'm so fucking curious about it, because the cakes in the challenges and the cake or cash cakes, they look good. Now, I wasn't looking at them close up, but like a lot of them look good. There was sometimes the obvious flaws, like the dorm room refrigerator black fondant fucked you up, and so it was a little obvious. It was interesting. It was such an interesting show to watch. I definitely saw some people talking about how they were a little tired that like each season weighed a lot on shoes and bags as cakes that were being made. And I agree with that. I would like to see season 3 kind of push a little bit more, but I found it so fucking fascinating. I find it interesting to be able to like spot what's going to be a red flag, what seems like a thing that somebody could nail that's actually really fucking hard. Like Jared in that pot of matzah, I'm sorry, but your celery and your onion, no. And it wasn't that they were inherently bad, but they were obviously not real food. And like I felt like the onion, it was almost like too much of a piece of art. Like papery things, leafy things, can be hard to do. They can be hard to do. And yes, there are things like wafer paper that are thinner and lighter, but like it was really fucking fun. Oh, the matzo ball soup stands out to me because there were ways, if that cake had been the diced up vegetables on the board with the pot and the matzah, I think he would have fucking nailed it. I think if he had done just diced up what looked like onions, carrots, celery, and maybe put a little glaze on them so they had a little bit of like a slightly washed vegetable look, I think he would have nailed it. But I felt like the whole vegetables were a little too close to the sun with that one. Yeah, I fucking love that show. I found it so enjoyable. I felt like the ability to change the decoys is the thing that makes it so much more interesting, so much more challenging. It's a huge part of it to me, to the competition. I just felt like it was truly a kind competition, fun, interesting, creative, thoughtful, and like I said, I felt like there was enough contestants that I had people to root for, that I was interested in, that I was excited by. And even as people were not doing as well or were getting eliminated or whatever, there was always somebody to kind of like cheer on. And I really enjoyed that. And it really made me crave cake. And I haven't had cake yet. And that's been like 2 weeks. And it's a travesty. I fucking love cake. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed just trying to get ready with me with a bunch of new makeup, some old makeup, and a whole lot of geeking out about cake. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not yet subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe. But most importantly, thank you to my patrons and my channel members. Patreon or YouTube membership is the best way to support me, and your support really goes a long way. I am disabled, autistic. I've been unemployed for a year now, or unemployed and wildly underemployed. Anyway, all that to say, I don't know. That's who I am. I'm gonna go now. Don't forget to take care of yourself better today than you did yesterday, because you're worth it. Bye, friends.